This series is based on a true story. On the 15th of July, 1992, Rachel Nichols' body was found on Wimbledon Common. The only witness to the crime was her nearly 3-year-old son, Alex. The investigation that followed became one of the most controversial in the history of the British police. Alex remembers that as a little boy, he went for a walk with his mother, but she never came home. That day, Andre Hanscom could never have imagined that he was seeing his girlfriend for the last time. Rachel was walking with her son in the park as usual, while Andre had gone to work. Suddenly someone blocked Rachel's path. The narrative takes us straight into those events. The area is cordoned off by the police. All of this happened right in front of little Alex. Meanwhile, Andre calls home as if nothing has happened. When he hears the voice of a police officer, the man immediately rushes to the station. Alex's father still does not know why he is here, but he is already fearing the worst. Detective Constable Nick Sparshat and his colleague Paul Miller regretfully break the tragic news to him. Through his tears, Andre asks them exactly how it happened. Detective Inspector Mick Wickerson arrives at the crime scene. According to the forensic team's preliminary findings, Rachel was attacked and dragged deeper into the woods. Rachel's son is the only witness to the crime. Until the very end, he did not want to move away from the body. Alex has now been hospitalized with several minor injuries. Andre's heart breaks at the thought of what his son had to endure. The news causes a huge public outcry. Everyone is asking why the attacker left Alex alive. Journalists will not leave Andre alone, but he has no desire to speak to the press. For now, it is too dangerous for the father and son to return home, so they will stay with Andre's mother. One of the detectives accompanies Andre home so he can collect his and Alex's things. The man can barely hold himself together, but right now he has to be strong for his son. All this time Alex has not said a single word. The child psychologist insists that despite the horror of the situation, nothing should be hidden from the boy, because he was there. Finally, father and son are reunited. Trying with all his strength to keep himself under control, Andre explains to the boy that his mother is gone. Alex still remains silent. June, Andre's mother, is going through this just as painfully. For now, apart from Alex there are no witnesses, and there are no leads either, which makes it even harder to catch the attacker. Whatever the boy saw could prove extremely valuable, but the detectives do not want to pressure him. In any case, the decision is Andre's alone. Only now does the man realize that as the only witness, Alex may be in danger, no matter how much the detectives assure him that the boy is safe here. Andre feels sick knowing that his son is being discussed on every television channel. The public is alarmed because a woman was attacked in a park in broad daylight. The police are under intense pressure. Inspector Keith Petter is put in charge of the investigation. The news is on the front pages of every newspaper, and reporters are waiting outside the nursery Alex attends, so father and son cannot even leave the house. The boy still has not said anything about what he saw. Understanding that justice for Rachel may depend on this, Andre gently tries to ask his son who else he saw in the park that day. Maybe the boy at least remembers what that person was wearing. Alex, however, has not even cried once. He either does not remember, or does not understand that his mother will never come back. No one can say for certain what is going on inside Alex's head. Andre makes a difficult decision: to take his son to the morgue to identify the body. June does not think this is a good idea, but perhaps it will help Alex remember at least something. When Andre sees the lifeless body of the woman he loved, he cannot hold back and starts crying. Alex, however, does not even look in her direction, playing with his toy car as if nothing has happened. Detective Inspector Mick Wickerson reports to Inspector Keith Petter and his team that they have two suspects. One man with a short haircut was washing his hands in a stream nearby, and another with a ponytail was hurrying away when the body was found. But the police still have no clear description, no murder weapon, no DNA, and no fingerprints. All they have is a partial footprint, and traces of red paint in Alex's hair. In other words, it is a needle in a haystack. Inspector Petter intends to interview the boy with the help of a child psychologist. Dr. Jean Harris Hendricks asks the boy careful questions, step by step leading him toward the events of that fateful day. In response, the boy starts throwing toys. Dr. Jean Harris Hendricks assures Andre and the officers that this is a normal reaction. Andre does not recognize his own child. Alex used to be such a cheerful and affectionate boy. The psychologist explains that without therapy, there is a serious risk that Alex will grow up angry and unmanageable. The long-term consequences could be very serious. It is 2002. Andre meets with Detective Sergeant Ivan Agnew. Rachel Nichols' murder case is being reopened. It is the biggest unsolved case in the history of the British police. Andre, already exhausted by all of this, asks what has changed. Detective Sergeant Agnew explains that since 1992, DNA analysis technology has advanced, so independent forensic scientists will re-examine all of the original samples. The media do not know about this yet. Detective Sergeant Agnew understands Andre's feelings, given how many mistakes the police made in the past, but now they have a real chance to get justice for Rachel. And they cannot do it without Alex's help. Meanwhile, the young man is living with his father in Catalonia, Spain. Andre has flown to London specifically to speak with the police. He chooses his words very carefully as he tells his son that the case has been reopened. The police are planning to interview Alex again. All these years, the young man has tried not to think about what happened. Back then, he told the police everything he knew. Andre knows that his son blames the police, but this is not about them now. However, Alex still does not want to remember his mother's death. He wants to remember her alive. This 10-year-old crime still unsettles the public. The main suspect was the man who had been washing his hands in a stream, but he was never found. In the past, Commander Nicholas Campbell, a specialist in criminal investigations, tried to convince Andre to cooperate with the media, because it could help bring in new information. Andre really did not want to do this, but for the sake of the investigation, he eventually agreed to take part in a press conference. The man begged anyone with even the smallest piece of information not to stay silent before someone else's life was destroyed. However, the journalists were only interested in how Alex was feeling, where the family was living, and things like that. Andre could no longer bear it. First and foremost, he was thinking about his son, but both of them had lost Rachel. He was only still holding on because of his mother's support. One day Andre decided to visit the crime scene to lay a rose in Rachel's memory. Detective Constable Nick Sparchat and Detective Constable Paul Miller accompanied him. Little Alex asked to go with his father. Perhaps it was not a very good idea, but in the end Andre decided that his son was ready. They were instantly surrounded by the press. Alex remembered the place very well. Andre promised his son that he would always be there for him. After that, hoping that Alex would finally talk, the police try again to ask him what the attacker looked like. The boy says that the bad man had a belt like Batman's. They also managed to establish that the attacker was a young, thin white man with short hair, wearing a white shirt, blue trousers and brown shoes, and carrying a black bag. Andre is very worried because if Alex remembers everything, it is unclear how this will affect him in the future. With a description of the attacker, Inspector Keith Petter plans to check all witness statements for anything that matches it. Someone must have seen this man. Professor Paul Britton, a forensic psychiatrist, was asked to put together a profile of the monster the police were looking for. Professor Britton objected, saying this was not a monster. It was probably a man between 20 and 30 years old, with poor social skills. If he had a job at all, it was likely unskilled work. Most likely he was unmarried, lived with his parents or rented a room. He did not know the victim. The greatest mystery was why the offender had left the only witness alive. The press found out where Andre and Alex were living. Meanwhile, the police managed to find matches. According to witness statements, the suspicious man by the stream had been wearing a white shirt and carrying a black bag. He also had a belt, or something like one, around his waist, like Batman's. The witness was called in for questioning. Soon every television channel was showing a sketch of the offender based on her description. Andre could not take it anymore. Journalists were going through their rubbish, stealing their mail, and constantly ringing their doorbell. Nick Sparchat and Paul Miller, who had been assigned to protect the Hanscom family, assured him that they would deal with it. But there was also good news. The police had arrested a potential suspect based on the composite sketch. At that moment Andre could barely hold back his emotions. The description was a perfect match. Professor Britton's profile also fit perfectly. The man arrested was named Colin Stagg. He was single, in his early 20s, and lived near the park. He admitted that he had been walking his dog there on the 15th. His neighbors described him as an odd man. Colin Stagg insisted that he had already been home at the time of the crime, but knives and books on black magic were found in his flat. While the detectives were questioning Colin, Andre and Alex were out for a walk when they ran into a woman who started bothering them. The man was terribly tired of the unwanted attention that complete strangers kept giving him and his son. Several people had seen Colin walking in the park that day. According to witnesses, he had also been carrying a black bag. Nevertheless, Colin continued to deny any involvement in the crime. The detectives did not believe a single word he said. Colin was a plausible suspect, but without evidence or a confession, the police could not hold him. The fact that several witnesses had seen him in the park that day meant nothing on its own. There was only one option left, to ask the only reliable witness to identify the suspect. But Alex was still too young, and he had a right to his childhood. In the present, father and son clash more and more often because they have different views on the reopening of the case. Alex wants to forget everything, while Andre is determined to get to the truth. The man also cannot help being troubled by his son's outbursts of aggression. In the past, when Andre learned that Colin Stagg had been released for lack of direct evidence, he was devastated. The criminal was still at large. All Andre wanted was to protect his son, but the police were of little use. He had no idea what to do with his life, or with the reporters who kept watch on their doorstep around the clock. It was like a never-ending nightmare. With all these well-wishers constantly sending letters and gifts, with the police and psychologists, Alex would have no childhood. Andre decided to take his son somewhere no one would know them. Maybe this was his only chance at a normal life. Since the start of the investigation into Rachel Nichols' case, the police had questioned 120 suspects, but they still had not found any significant leads. The police had to act quickly, because if the man who attacked Rachel was not caught, he would do it again. For Colin Stagg, being free turned out to be even worse than being behind bars, because he was now at the center of attention from the press and the public. Meanwhile, an undercover policewoman was pretending to be looking for someone to date and writing letters to Stagg, hoping to expose him. The detectives had no doubt that he was the killer, but they still had to prove it. Andre told the detectives that he intended to take Alex away as soon as the coroner's inquest was over. He was not going to tell anyone, not even the police, exactly where they were going. That way there was a better chance they would not be found. The detectives tried to talk Andre out of it, saying that things would gradually settle down, that the press would soon calm down, and that they were so close to arresting Stagg. But Andre had already lost faith in the police and was tired of all of it. In 1993, Andre moved his son to France. Alex was not supposed to tell anyone what had happened to his mother. If someone asked, Alex was supposed to say that she had been in an accident. The police still suspected Colin Stagg. Undercover officer Lizzie James had been corresponding with him for some time, but this had not brought the detectives any closer to arresting Stagg. While Andre and Alex were preparing to start a new life in France, Keith Petter received a reprimand from his superiors. Huge sums of public money had been spent on the investigation, yet the case had still not moved forward. In addition, information had leaked to the press that an undercover policewoman was corresponding with the suspect. Everything has a limit: money, time, patience. And if the whole thing ultimately failed, Petter would be made the scapegoat. In the present, Andre receives a call from Detective Sergeant Ivan Agnew. There is good news: male DNA has been found on Rachel's clothing, and it belongs neither to Alex nor to Andre. This is a major breakthrough in the investigation. Alex keeps running away from home and getting into trouble. Andre cannot cope with him. Carla, who helps them around the house, believes that if Andre does not stop being so overprotective of his son, Alex will never grow up or learn to take responsibility for his actions. After Alex miraculously survived, nothing was ever more important to Andre than his son's safety. After moving to France, Andre prepared an emergency bag for himself and Alex, with documents and essential items in case they ever had to move again in a hurry. The bag always had to be kept by the front door. June missed her son and grandson very much. She was convinced that if Andre kept hiding Alex from the world forever, it would not do him any good. However difficult it might be, they had to learn to trust people again. Andre told his mother that everything had changed. Sometimes Alex remembered things he had never mentioned before. Andre recorded everything on video and sent it to the British police. One day Alex said that he had seen a knife. This prompted the detectives to send undercover officer Lizzie James to meet Stagg in person and tell him a story, devised by Professor Britton, about a terrible act she had committed. In this way they hoped to make Colin tell his own story in return. Colin did not confess directly, but he showed Lizzie the position Rachel's lifeless body had been left in at the park. Since Colin could not have known this, he was arrested again. Andre was not exactly pleased by the news because he was sure this was still not the end. June could only hope that Colin would be found guilty and that Andre and Alex would finally be able to come home. But the case was turned upside down when there were new victims: young mother Samantha Bissett and her 4-year-old daughter, Jasmine. It happened in their own home. This time the crime was even more brutal, and the offender left no witnesses. Detective Inspector Mick Wickerson suggested that they were dealing with a serial offender. Since Colin Stagg was already in custody, the police had probably arrested the wrong man. Inspector Keith Petter refused to accept that the same person had committed both crimes. So much money and so many resources had been spent on arresting Stagg. Could it all really have been for nothing? The teacher at the nursery Alex attended expressed concern that the boy barely spoke to adults and drew dark, disturbing pictures. Andre flatly refused the suggestion that Alex should see a child psychologist, saying only that this was normal behavior for a child who had been through upheaval. But Andre's eyes gave him away. The new suspect in the horrifying double crime was a man named Robert Napper. Because of this, Colin Stagg's trial was postponed, as Inspector Keith Petter told Andre over the phone. Despite everything, Petter still believed that Stagg was their offender. The court, however, decided otherwise and ruled the evidence obtained by Lizzie James inadmissible. It all looked as if Colin had simply been trying to impress Lizzie. The fact that he had guessed the position of Rachel's body was just a coincidence. When Petter told him this over the phone, Andre was deeply disappointed, but not surprised. The court ruled that the police operation had been carried out with serious irregularities, so Colin Stagg was released from custody. Keith Petter was deeply sorry that he had let Andre down. In any case, no words of regret could bring any relief to either Andre or Alex. The news spread through the media instantly. One question remained unanswered: who had attacked Rachel Nichol? The bad news did not end with Stagg's release. Journalists found out where Andre and Alex were living in France. Furious, Andre drove the intrusive reporters away. Father and son would have to move, the same thing all over again. In the present, Alex is almost expelled from school for bad behavior. This time Andre manages to reach an agreement with the head teacher, but the situation is slipping further and further out of control. Alex only wants his father to finally let him grow up, while Andre is desperate to protect his son. In the past, Robert Napper, who looked very much like Colin Stagg, was arrested on suspicion of murdering Samantha Bissett and her daughter, Jasmine. Detective Inspector Mick Wickerson still insisted that this case was directly connected to Rachel Nichol's case, but Inspector Keith Petter's team stubbornly continued to deny that they had failed. It was described as one of the biggest failures in British policing. So much money and so many people had been thrown into the investigation, only for it to end up feeding the press. Andre was preparing to take his son away again, this time to Spain. The boy had only just begun to get used to a new country and a new language, but there was no choice. In the present, Alex, who has been grounded, runs away from home. Andre is beside himself with worry and drives through every street looking for his son. As it turns out, Alex had been skateboarding, fallen, and ended up in hospital. That is not all. Andre learns from the police that his son regularly gets into street fights and causes trouble. The young man is also suspected of damaging a police car. Andre does not understand what he did wrong, or why his son grew up like this. Was this really what Rachel gave her life for? Alex does not understand what that means. Andre says that because there were no defensive wounds, the police concluded that Rachel had not fought back. She sacrificed herself to save her son. What would she say if she saw what her child had become? Andre no longer knows how to get through to Alex. The punishments are over. From now on, Alex will decide for himself what to do with his life. July, 2004. Detective Sergeant Ivan Agnew calls Andre to tell him that the unknown male DNA found on Rachel's clothing does not belong to Colin Stagg, but the police know whose it is. And this time the killer will answer for everything. It takes Andre an enormous effort to control his emotions. Since 1995, Robert Napper has been held in a high-security psychiatric hospital for dangerous offenders. He has been convicted of murdering Samantha and Jasmine Bissett. The police are certain that Robert Napper also attacked Rachel. Now they only have to prove it. It is already 2005, and the case is still unsolved. The DNA is an almost complete match, but the sample does not fully meet the required standard, so the police will have to rely on other evidence. Andre no longer even hopes for anything from the police. He only needs the truth about that day and about all the days that followed, when no one had been punished. Over the past 14 years, the case has been closed and reopened several times, but none of it has led anywhere. Andre and Alex are going through a difficult period in their relationship. Alex has a girlfriend, Anna. Right now the police's main task is to disprove Robert Napper's alibi and examine all the physical evidence as if no one had ever examined it before. It hurts Andre that his son is almost never home. Alex prefers to spend time at his girlfriend's place, and he does not care how the investigation is going, or at least the young man pretends not to. Detective Sergeant Ivan Agnew visits Robert's former employer, George. Since many years have passed, George cannot say anything for certain, only that Robert was strange, and women tended to avoid him. But an old shift rota has survived, and it shows that on the day Rachel died, Robert had the day off. So where was he? Detective Chief Inspector Tony Nash and Detective Sergeant Ivan Agnew question Robert in the presence of doctors. When asked why he lied about being at work on the 15th of July, Robert replies, "No comment." The doctors insist that the questioning should be stopped, but Detective Chief Inspector Nash keeps pressing him, asking Robert whether he hates mothers, because as a child his own mother failed to protect him from his cruel father. The officers still do not get a confession, but Robert is not formally in prison, so they have the right to request a search warrant. The news resurfaces in the media. Alex turns 18. He is ready to accept what happened and move on, but Andre cannot do that. His soul will not find peace until he gets answers. Andre does not want to deceive himself the way Alex does. During the search, among Robert's belongings, they find brown shoes similar to the ones Alex had described, as well as a peeling red metal box. Detective Sergeant Agnew knows from the case files that fragments of red paint were found in Alex's hair. This is a major breakthrough in the case. The samples found in Alex's hair have been preserved all this time. The bad news is that during the forensic examination, these fragments will be lost forever, so the detectives have only one chance. To charge Napper, They need a match with the paint and the shoes. As soon as the forensic results are ready, Robert receives a summons to appear in court. He simply tells his lawyer that they did not do it. Alex does not want to attend the trial and go through this hell again. The police have spent far too long forcing them to endure one disappointment after another. But Andre knows that he has to be in court. It is his duty to Rachel. 41-year-old Robert Napper is officially charged. As interest in the case flares up again, the press tracks down Alex and Andre's new address. The attempts to invade their private life send Alex into a rage. The young man simply wants to be left alone. For the first time, Alex tells Anna the truth about his past. All his life he and his father have moved from place to place, trying to run away, but Alex no longer intends to hide. He has had enough. The forensic psychiatrist, Dr. Shah, tries to get Robert to talk, to find out more about that day, but the man only rambles incoherently about things that have nothing to do with the case. Perhaps it is because of the medication he is being given at the hospital, or perhaps he really is ill. Andre cannot take a single step without ending up in front of journalists' cameras. He travels to London without Alex. Nicholas Campbell, who now holds the rank of commander, urges Andre not to speak to the press in the interests of the investigation, although many years earlier, Campbell had asked him to do the opposite. Andre despises journalists. They have done more than enough damage to his life. In court, Robert Napper pleads guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. Robert's medical history shows that he has suffered from Asperger's syndrome since childhood, and he has also recently been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. He believes he is a telepath and a time traveler. In the end, the court rules that Robert will be returned to a secure psychiatric hospital for offenders, and will not be released until he no longer poses a danger to the public, which is unlikely ever to happen. The sentence has been handed down, but Andre strangely feels no satisfaction, only emptiness. The police could have stopped Napper, but they missed so many chances to arrest him. Keith Petter, who resigned after the failure, watches the news about Robert Napper's conviction. The offender avoided justice for so long not because of his cleverness, but because of police incompetence. Andre explains to Alex that the man who took Rachel's life is ill, and most likely did not even understand what he was doing. So they will not get an answer to the question of why he did it. Alex returns to London looking for answers. The young man feels that he deserves at least some kind of explanation, so he finds Dr. Monroe, Robert Napper's former doctor. Alex begs her to give him at least 15 minutes. Dr. Monroe tells him that Robert was bullied at school and that his father was very cruel. Alex needs to know why he was left alive. Robert has never spoken about his crimes. Dr. Monroe can only speculate that Napper chose mothers, because through them he was punishing his own mother, who had not protected him from his cruel father. Perhaps Robert saw himself in Alex. Andre receives an anonymous package from the Crown Prosecution Service, a detailed report on the missed opportunities, on every chance to stop Napper before he attacked Rachel and other women. Robert had done this before. The only difference was that he had left his victims alive. The police had made mistake after mistake. Alex asks his father to stop. This will not bring them comfort. Alex says that in his life, there has always been a loving person, and thanks to him, despite everything he went through, he found the strength not to grow bitter toward the whole world and to move on. But Robert never had such a person. Alex has forgiven Robert because it is the only way forward. Andre understands that Rachel would be proud of her son if she were here now. All they can do now is turn something bad into something good, whatever that means. Then the voiceover tells us the details of the real story. Using materials from the Crown Prosecution Service, Andre and Alex filed a lawsuit against the Metropolitan Police. An internal investigation revealed numerous failings, but not a single officer was held accountable. Today Andre and Alex live in Spain and continue to rely on the strength of faith, hope and love. They are closer than ever. On the screen, you can see a real photo of Andre, Alex, and Rachel.